Greetings, everybody. I have in front of me Tangelia, Dr. Terrell, and she's a certified mental health first aid trainer with Mental Health First Aid USA. She trains individuals how to identify signs and symptoms of mental illness and substance use disorder. She has a bachelor degree from the Alabama State University and a master's from the University of Phoenix and an education specialist degree from Capella University. She's also a keynote speaker and the author of her first book. Now hear that, She is Dead. How are you, Tangelia?
I'm good. How are you?
I am blessed to have you here on my show. Finally, you are so amazing. And
Thank you.
So blessed. Tangelia, what state are you calling us today?
I am calling from Maryland.
Nice. I haven't had anybody from Maryland yet. You are exquisite and exclusive and special today, just on my show. That is awesome. So Tangelia, of course, first question, I'm sure you get asked that a lot. Why Tangelia Dr. Worth It? What is it?
Well, I chose Dr. Worth It because I didn't feel worthy myself. It's actually a self-proclamation. It's an affirmation for myself that I am worth it. And if I can tell myself enough to believe it, I'm hoping that I could share that same feeling of worth with those others who don't feel the same way about themselves.
I absolutely love how powerful, you are to, pretty much acknowledge your past and how you build your future without being, like limping on your past. And this is so important for any girls out there or anybody, to really identify who they are right now. Right. Find that voice and go for it. I call myself God's masterpiece. I am. Because there's no one like me, nobody will be like me.
That's right.
This is a self-proclamation because in my childhood also, I didn't feel like worthy one way or another. So we all are. So this is amazing, Dr. Worthy. This is just, so tell us about your book. You called it She's Dead. Who is you talking about?
Well, I'm actually speaking about my mother. My mother passed away when I was 2 years old. And I'm often told the story by my older sister that the day of her funeral, after the funeral, we come back to the house and my dad left to get some ice. And when he came back, I ran to the door and I said, "Daddy, where's Mama?" And he said, "Baby, she's dead." I was like, okay. And I went playing, but I went back to the door later looking, "Daddy, when's Mama coming home?" And he kept saying, "Baby, she's dead." I didn't understand that she was I didn't understand what dead meant. Mm-hmm. So since she never came back, I thought she left me. Mm-hmm. So my feeling of abandonment and worthlessness was like here because all I could think of was I must have done something wrong to make her leave. And I would go in the store and I would look for her. Mm-hmm. When we went in the grocery store, I was looking for my mama. And she never came back. So the feeling of worthlessness encompassed my body. And that's like all I could think of. But I actually put it into the back of my head and tried not to think about it or remember it. Once I realized what happened and what death actually meant around the age of 12, that's when I actually tried to commit suicide. Yeah.
Well, so this is very profound story from your life. Sometimes I always tell people, when people write something, that means they got to the point in their lives when it's like breaking point. If they don't put it on a paper, something is going to happen to them. So what were you trying to achieve by writing this book? Who are your audience? Who are you writing to? And the message, this profound message, what is it? Like, walk us through, like we're there.
Well, I think the biggest message is, as an adult, I'm just now realizing that I have a mental illness. I was just diagnosed about 2 years ago with a mental illness, but within talking with my therapist, and I've been in therapy since that time, I'm realizing that a lot of things that I've spoken to her about that happened to me as a child, there was a lot of mental illness going on with me that I didn't recognize. You know, I was a child. I didn't know what was going on. But now looking back, I'm like, wow, because there was a point in my childhood where my first day of school in first grade, the first day I got on the school bus and I heard someone say, well, I got on and I'm looking out the window because I'm so excited. And I heard the little girl and the little boy behind me say, she ugly. And the little boy said, and fat. And then the little girl said, real fat and ugly. And I didn't turn around to even look because I knew they were talking about me, and my little heart, my little spirit just going down, down, down. And the next thing I heard was, hey. And I turned around to look, and she slapped me in the face. And they both started pummeling me in my head and just beat me to the point where the bus driver stopped the bus and came back and made me sit behind him. From that day until I was in my 20s, I would sit and pull hair out. When I was on the bus, I was pulling out my hair, and I had a bald spot right in the top of my head. And so I would cover it up. And I don't even think my father and my stepmother knew. I don't think anybody knew except for me that I was pulling out my hair, but I didn't know that that was a mental illness. You know, I didn't know that there was something wrong with me pulling out my hair. I just enjoyed it and it soothed me. So yeah, that's just one of the incidences that caused me to write this book. Like, who else is out there? What other little girl is out there feeling like she's all alone and no one understands her? Because that's how I felt. I felt alone, and I felt like no one understood me, no one loved me, and no one definitely cared about me, because who could care about a little girl whose mama left her? If your mother left you, then who else is going to care about you? That's how I felt. And so I just want every little girl to read this book and feel like I can make it. I can make it. And not only little girls, there are a lot of adults with little girls that never grew up inside of them. Because I'm just discovering that little girl never grew up. And my therapist is helping me to speak to that little girl, because she's still crying for help. She's still crying, that saying that something's not right here. You know, even little things that I would think that I should have forgotten, I've not forgotten, and they're there. And I just squished them into the recesses of my brain, trying not to remember. But since I wrote that book, I've had so many dreams that brought up my past. And I was like, wow, you know, and I would tell my therapist, guess what? I had a dream and I remember this happening. She was like, really? Yeah. So a lot of things that I never dealt with, I'm just dealing with. It's 40 years later, and I'm just dealing with some of the trauma that I experienced as a child. Yeah.
Who's your biggest inspiration that, you know, gives you this force, you know, to keep going, Tangela?
I would have to say my biggest inspiration is God. I mean, like, I keep looking back over my life and thinking, how did I make it? I've had people to review my book, and they literally called me going, how did you make it? It had to be God. I said, I know it was God. It couldn't have been anyone else. And he inspires me because he kept me. He kept me safe. You know, even though I was going through what I was going through, there was a purpose in the pain.
Yes.
There was a certain purpose in the pain, because not only can I help other women, when as a teacher, and I teach fourth grade, I see little girls who have very low self-esteem, and I know exactly what to say to them to help them to smile, hold your head up. You're beautiful, because I know they need to hear that. I never heard that as a child. I never heard those words, you know, and our little girls need it. they needed, especially our chubby little girls, because I was that chubby little girl. And I needed to hear that I was worthy, you know, and I try my best to make certain that I pour into every chubby little girl that I see, because I need her to know that you are worth it. It's okay. You're going to make it. And I share my story a lot with my students, and especially students who I work in high poverty schools. And a lot of times those children, they feel like they have no hope. They feel like there's never a way out of where they are. And for them to hear, Miss Terrell used to be on public assistance. Miss Terrell never had clothes and she went hungry some days. They're like, really? Yeah, yeah. Miss Terrell failed some classes too. Really? Yeah. For them to hear that I failed, or there were some things that I wasn't great at when I was a kid, it makes them think that, okay, I can do this. I might not be doing too great right now, but at some point in life, I can come out of this. It takes a lot of hard work. Yes, it takes intestinal fortitude. It takes resilience. But yes, my darling, you can come out of it. And I'm right here. I'm going to walk with you the entire way. As long as you want me to walk with you, I'm right beside you.
This is very profound and so like influential what you're sharing. Not everybody's so vulnerable sharing their stories with people, you know, when they speak out, when they train, when they teach, when they come out on my show. But, you know, thank you for taking your guards down. And as I was writing my book, I also you know, we're investigating about some of the words and and then I've learned about the word pain. The translation of the word pain is actually from Latin that means fine, which means somebody that's going through the pain, they deserve to be, you know, through the pain because it's their fine, it's their pain that they have to go through and pay back for what they have done. Wow. And also we all discovered, and it's no secret that the hardest pain to deal with is the emotional pain, like mental pain. It's not the physical pain, because bruises, cuts, they all go away. They all patch, you know, one way or another. It's done. But the pain that we carry inside of us, it takes time to take care of it. Yeah. But I do not want anybody out there to feel that because they're going through the pain, they're paying some kind of fine of something they have in their lives. It's not their fault.
That's right.
Like you said, it's a turning point and it's a learning point for us to grow. There is a reason why we all grow through this moment, through the valley of darkness. Yeah. Good thing that we are not stopped there. We are walking through, which means we're going to make it there one way or another. But Tangela, tell us this. I know you've spoken with that. What would you want to say right now to our maybe leaders, our schools, you know, or like our adults about these beautiful creatures, like creations, like children who are not feeling worthy, who are feeling, like you said, chubby maybe, like ugly, or trying to hide themselves and become invisible. You want to tell to adults, how can we adults help children right now?
See them. See them worthy. I mean, so many of our children, and I think sometimes we look over children, especially children who are doing well in school. We look over them because they are doing so well, so they must be well adjusted. That is one of the greatest fallacies that's told. Just because a child is making straight A's does not mean that they're well adjusted. Sometimes that means that I'm keeping my face in my book so that I'm not noticed. We have to get to know our students and get to know our children, get to know what their quirks are, what are their characteristics, who are they? We've got to know them very well. Like my son, I tell him all the time, and he's sitting here, but I tell him, I know you. I know you like the back of my hand. I know you. I know when something's wrong with you. I know when something's not wrong with you. I know when you're happy, when you're mad, when you're upset. I know you. When you're off, I can move in and say, okay, what's wrong? Talk about it. You got to talk. And I push him to talk. You got to talk. You can't expect to get better if you don't talk. And parents, when you're talking to your children, work on using questions that are not just like yes or no questions, open-ended questions. Oh, I know you had a test today. Tell me what was on the test. They got to talk. They can't say yes or no. Not how do you think you did on your test today? Good. And they're done.
And they're done, yeah.
They're done. But push them, open it up. What was on the test? Which one do you think was the hardest question? How long did it take you? Did you finish? Okay. Keep pushing them with those questions so that they'll talk about it. What friends did you talk to today? Who did you sit with at lunch? What did you have for lunch? What was the favorite part of lunch today? You know, so open up and let them talk. And sometimes it's difficult, especially as adults working outside the home. I know when I come home, I'm tired. And I open the door and sometimes my son wants to talk and I'm like, wait, I'm not ready. I'm not ready. And as adults, as parents, we have to know our limitations as well. And so what I've explained to him is when I come in, I'm not ready to talk. Give me about an hour to decompress. And you have to know that about yourself because otherwise you're going to be snapping. They're trying to talk to you and you're just snapping.
Yes.
But tell them, what are your parameters that's going to make you a better listener for them? Mine is don't talk to me when I walk in the door because I'm still up to here with driving in traffic, number one, and number two, just my day in general. I need time to decompress. So find ways to talk to them. Teachers, find ways to talk to your students. Find the greatness in them. We don't want to always just talk about schoolwork. Talk about how's mom, how's grandpa, where are you going this weekend? Where'd you go? What happened? Did you have a party and didn't invite me? And I've done that before. I've heard kids talking about parties in my class and did not invite me, and I showed up on Saturday. And they're like, Mr. Red, what are you doing here? I came to crash your party, ma'am. And they think that is so funny. Mr. Red crashed my party. But guess what that did? That opened up a new avenue for us to have some type of connection. Because now, for some reason, baby girl thinks I'm her best friend. She thinks I'm her best friend. And so she wants to tell me everything. And that has opened up one of the greatest connections. I still have a student to this day. I did that to her in first grade. And she is now 26 years old. And she still calls me. I'm like, little girl, why are you calling me? I just want to talk. So it's good to do that because they know that you care. You know, it's often said they don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And you've got to learn to help them to open up. And you've got to open up, be vulnerable with them, let them know when they've hurt your feelings. I'm very comfortable with telling the kids, you know, that really hurt my feelings. You know, how will you feel if, so that they will understand. But once you have that that connection with your students or your children or your nieces or your nephews, it's hard to break that bond. So find a way to bond with them where whatever it is. It might be something you're not even comfortable with. I am not a dancer, but I dance everywhere. And I always tell my daughter, she's like the greatest dancer ever. And I'm like, I'm going to come. I want to be in the show this weekend. She's like, no. And so I try to do her little dance and it's just funny to us, but that's our little connection. That's our, you know, we just fuss and laugh about it because, you know, I can't dance, but I want to be on stage with her. I really do, but she won't let me. But that's our connection. You know, we don't talk a lot and she's not a big talker, but when I talk about those types of things, she lights up and she starts to talk. So find ways to open up to your children so that they will feel connected to you.
Thank you so much, Tangela. That was Tangela with us, Dr. Warded, with a message, see them, find the greatness in them. And it was Ilona from the IP Resilience, and we see you next time. Remember, be resilient and stay strong.